y'all, what's up? It's those wrestling girls. It's your girl, Krista B.
And Queen PR.
And we are here to let you know to tune into Old Face Wrestling because they're one of the best podcasts out. And we follow them, so you should too. So subscribe, hit that button, and listen for the latest in wrestling news. Later.
Hey, this is Sofia Lopez from Women of Wrestling, and you are watching Old Face Wrestling.
That's right. Oh, Face Wrestling. Listen to the podcast. Listen. They are Dark Side approved. Outlet approves it. Oh, Face Wrestling. I'll be listening. Will you?
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us today on O Face Wrestling. This is your host JT, and today I am joined by Amber Rodriguez. So thank you so much for joining us today, Amber.
Hey, thank you for having me.
No problem at all. So you have a pretty interesting story. You started wrestling in 2011, but you said you just started training in 2010. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so what made you want to get into wrestling?
I was always a fan of it. And then I grew up in like a real neighborhood with like a real high crime rate. So it kept me out of trouble. But yeah, I had sought out the wrestling school. Well, my brothers did actually, and then they invited me to come to, like I said, just keep me out of trouble with everything going on and everything happening in school. So it's funny because I really kind of just stumbled into it. Like I always loved it. Like I said, like I was always a huge fan. But I never really saw myself doing it until I was training and I was like picking up everything they were teaching me. And I'm like, oh, okay, maybe I can do this. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. So when you got into wrestling, like, explain to me like the toll it took on your body. 'Cause I know it's really harsh taking all them bumps.
The toll it's taking.
Or taking, yeah.
Yeah. So it's funny because it's like I'm only 25. I started training when I was just 15, and yeah, like being young, people think you can just conquer the world, your body can take anything, and that is not always the case. Because I was told by one of my trainers actually that every match is like being in a mini car accident. So if you've had over 700 matches, it's like having 700 car accidents. So it's a lot. Like I can crack my hip, like how people crack their knuckles, like I crack my hip. And it's crazy.
Ouch. Yeah, I've seen like a lot of wrestlers, like every wrestler is different. Like some throughout the years they managed to, handle it pretty well. But I was educated by a Jungle Girl. I don't know if you ever heard of her, but she was explaining to me like wrestlers, like it really depends on what type of wrestler they are. Like, are you the one taking the bumps, or are you the one executing the moves? Like if you're like a powerhouse who just kind of goes in there dominating, you're gonna have a longer career. You're not gonna have that wear on your body and all that. So as far as your in-ring style, how would you explain what you bring to the ring?
A little bit of everything, honestly. Like you'll see power moves in there, you'll see a little bit of lucha in there, so a little bit of everything, honestly. I try to mix it up and keep it fresh and different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I noticed when I was watching some of your videos, you definitely had a pretty unique style, very exciting. You definitely offered a little bit of everything. I definitely like that in a wrestler, because when you see kind of just one thing, you know what to expect all the time from them. It's nice, like, having that variety of different styles that you offer to the ring.
Yeah, and then it shows versatility, which is always good.
Yeah, it's definitely good having the versatility as well. So next question. So you started out, wrestling and training in 2010 and all. Then eventually in 2015 you retired. So well, what happened with that?
So my last match, I was blessed to share the ring with some really top-notch competitors. And yeah, in 2015, my last match was November with Mickie James at MCW Pro Wrestling. And it was a loser leaves town match, and I guess I really left town.
Yeah. Was that the whole intention of the match, is for you to retire, or is that just the gimmick that they just had at the time?
So Dan McDevitt kind of worked with me on my way out. I had opened up to him about how I was in the process of joining the military. I had my contract signed and everything, and I had my ship out date coming closer. So I'm like, hey, like, I'm going to have to stop this. You know what I mean? And yeah, he worked with me and came up with that story, you know, to kind of like have me, because it's so annoying when someone just kind of disappears. You know what I mean? Like, just stop wrestling and you're like, oh, whatever happened to so and so? So I'm glad it ended like with the story. You know what I mean? And they kind of left that room, you know, for a return.
Yeah, I definitely like when there's like a story and a reason for someone leaving rather than it just being like random, like you said, like what happened to them, where did they go? At least people know, hey, you had like your your farewell kind of match and all that.
Yeah.
So what made you want to join the Coast Guard?
It's so funny how I just kind of like stumble into things. like I said with wrestling, it's like, I don't know, it was another thing that I did want to do. I'm the type of person that likes a challenge. And with wrestling, it was great, but I just felt like, I'm trying to say this like without triggering anybody, but you know that movie The Wrestler, where he's just kind of like old and like, you know,
I've
still
heard
trying
of
to,
it, but
yeah, still trying to
yeah.
get like that last hoorah. And I'm like, man, like, I need that safety net. You know what I mean? Like, I want like a career too, you know,
Mhm.
like outside of this that I can have, you know. So I did want to join like some type of military branch, but I didn't want to be laying in the sand getting shot at. So I picked the Coast Guard.
Yeah, that was definitely a safe bet for you. But like you said, like, you definitely need a safety net because wrestling, just like any sport, you cannot do it forever. I mean,
Yeah.
some wrestlers, it seems like they do it forever, but it's always good having a safety net with, something that you can get injured because you don't know when you can just go out there in the ring, get hurt, and you can never wrestle again. You need some kind of safety net, some kind of, career to fall back on. So that definitely was, a smart idea. And
Yeah, it's just like people in like the NFL, you know, like it's great, like that's cool, but if they get hurt, you know what I mean? Like, what else do you have? Do you have a college education? Do you have like prior career experience or something like that? You know what I mean? So, you know, with me being so young, like people say, oh, you're young, you got time, but those years creep up on you. So, you know, I always advise everybody, like, especially people just starting to train, I'm like, hey, like, you want to have something else too, you know, just in case, because you never know what could happen.
exactly, because I mean, like, same thing with me. Like, I've been doing warehouse work for years, and it's finally like taking a toll on me. And I kind of started thinking like I need to look into something else. So I started college, back in June, and it's like you need that safety net because anything, can take a wear on your body, and it's always a smart bet to always have that option.
Yeah, and you don't want to be one of those people who are like, well, I've been in the business 35 years, and it's like, well, what do you have to show for it? You know what I mean?
Exactly. So during your time, wrestling, you've wrestled like you mentioned Mickey James. And
Yeah.
you also wrestled Lita. So how was that experience wrestling with legends like, Mickey and Lita?
Oh, it was great. And the list goes on, you know, like even my matches with like Sumi Sakai or even Nyla Rose, you know what I mean? And that's the thing. It's like she was definitely that diamond in the rough, you know what I mean? And but yeah, they've all been great. Lita specifically, it was like somebody pinch me, you know what I mean? Because this is even Mickey, because it's like these are people I watched on TV, and it's like to share the ring with them, to even share a locker room with them. It's like now these are my peers, now these are my colleagues,
Mhm.
you know. So it was unreal, definitely. And then just the knowledge that they had to pass, you know, and their humility, you know, that's always refreshing, because it's so annoying working with somebody who's like, well, I'm up here, and you know what I mean, they just have that ego, and it's like you don't really get to take much away from that. But with them, like, they were just so open and so willing to, you know, share what they know and share, you know, their experiences. And it was just great, and Melina too, I've had a little thing with her at MCW, and Lisa Marie Veron, like, it's great, just having those people to go to, you know.
Yeah, it definitely seems like they're more of like a locker room leader kind of person. I mean, I got that impression when I met Lita about like almost 2 years ago. I was talking to her about, her match coming up at Evolution, and I brought up, her having a match with Becky Lynch, and she basically said like, yeah, we want to do that, but she's in a title picture now. I'm really happy for her. Like, it seemed like, hey, she was more so happy that Becky was getting, the spotlight rather than her having that spotlight with her. So she seems to be just a very noble person. Even like to all the fans, she took the time to talk to everyone. It wasn't, hey, here's an autograph picture, get out of here. Like, she sits there and talks to everyone. She was definitely a sweetheart. I've unfortunately never been able to meet like a Mickie James or anything like yet, but I definitely got that vibe from Lita, and it's good having wrestlers like that in general who they have that experience, that star power, but they're also willing to educate and put over other wrestlers, like, because you don't see that all the time. There's a lot of wrestlers who have that, but they have that ego.
Yeah.
I can name a lot of them, but Hulk Hogan is one of them. He's one of the I'm not gonna put you over kind of guy. Like, it's all about me. Like, wrestlers like Lita and Mickey, and even like I know Natalia is the same way. Like,
Yes, she is. I had the pleasure of meeting her a few years ago, and yeah, it's just great because I feel like at that point you have to give back. You know what I mean? Like, what else are you gonna do? You have to give back, and I mean, with people that are willing to learn too. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like it's that kind of thing where you got to feel that person out, and if they're seeking advice from you, rather than talking to this person who's just kind of there, you know what I mean? They're not going to last long. So, but it's definitely great that they're so humble.
exactly, because sometimes you just have to kind of realize like you had your moment. It's time to build the future.
Yeah.
Because we've seen that in the wrestling industry before. When wrestlers don't want to do that, it ends up hurting the company. Like WCW, they had all the old heads from the 80s and early 90s who did not want to give up that, spotlight, and that company went downhill. You have to build other stars. And it's just, in general, it's just a nice thing to do, Like, let other people have their moments, educate other people. Like, it feels good doing good things for other people at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So, as far as your comeback, what made you want to come, get back into wrestling?
So, really just seeing all of my peers make it, and of course I'm like so happy for them, right? But at the same time, like, I had that what if in the back of my mind. So honestly, just seeing them make it inspired me to give it another go, because I did kind of leave abruptly. Like, while there was a story and there was a finish, like, I did kind of just go from one hurdle to the next, and I never really closed that chapter, you know what I mean? So I just want to answer that question for myself, like, oh, I'll give it another go, and we'll just see what happens.
And with this comeback, what are you looking to achieve in it?
Pretty much I want to be better than I was the first time around. Like, I want to surpass who I was that first time. Like, I want to achieve similar things but better things for myself. I want to be in the ring with more great talents, and just make a name for myself as well. Again.
Again, yeah. Is there any particular opponents or companies that you're looking to wrestle with?
A lot. Shine has always been on my radar. That's like the biggest one I'm looking at, and you'll see me at some other places. I don't want to do spoilers, but there's some big things coming in 2020.
Awesome. Have you heard of the company Women of Wrestling?
Yes.
Is that a company you're interested in wrestling for one day?
Of course.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of them, and I've actually interviewed about like 6 of their wrestlers on our show. So, Yeah, that's definitely. I've heard nothing but good things about that company, so it would be awesome to see you wrestle with them one day.
Yeah, and me and Amber O'Neil have actually crossed paths before, so yeah, I'm really, really excited for the future.
Yeah, actually, speaking of Amber, she's supposed to guest on the show sometime in the future. We've been exchanging messages for a few weeks now. We just have to keep postponing. But yeah, she's a really nice and humble person. Like, it would be a pretty fun match to see you two get in the ring together.
Yeah, I mean, we've had some good matches too, but I think now it would also be, even better. You know what I mean? Because I wrestled her when I was relatively new. So, even now it'll be great.
So yeah, having a little bit more experience and all, you'll be able to go out there and kind of, put together a better match and all that.
Yeah, and the matches we've had have been great, but like I said, it's only so much you can do when you're at a certain point in your career. So with having even more knowledge, like you said, it'll be even better.
Yes, exactly. So, I think that wraps up this interview, Amber. I just want to thank you so much for joining us today over at O Face Wrestling.
Thanks for having me. It was great.
No problem at all. Do you have any social media you want to put out there?
Yes, finally. And that's the thing because I was off social media for so long, so I just had to make a new Twitter and Instagram and all that. But yeah, so my Twitter is at Amber1Rodriguez and Instagram La Reina Renegada and my Facebook page Amber Rodriguez.
All right, everyone, make sure you follow her on there. I'll put the links to all her social media here in the bio. And also make sure you follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at O Face Wrestling. And thank you all so much for tuning in. And thank you once more again, Amber.
Thanks for having me.